As women, we are warned not to people please, but we never talk about what to do when we are the target of the other person's people pleasing. You've probably heard the phrase before, a man will do anything to make his woman happy. It sounds sweet, romantic even, but it's also the reason why so many relationships fall apart. Because when a man does everything to make his woman happy, what he's really doing is abandoning himself. And when he abandons himself, the relationship cannot thrive. When we talk about people pleasing, it's usually about how we need to stop doing it. But what if we're not the people pleaser in the relationship? What if your man is? What do you do when someone won't stop people pleasing you? Here's the hard truth. You don't fix it. You don't coach it. You don't protect them from it. You create boundaries and you enforce them. Because when someone is abandoning themselves to earn your love, that isn't love. It's manipulation with a smile. That is control wrapped in kindness. And no amount of trying to help them grow a backbone will change the fact that they are operating from shame, not sovereignty. Let's talk about how this actually plays out for high functioning women. And by high functioning, I mean women who are emotionally aware, grounded, self reliant, smart, often with a good, successful career, the do it all at home. These women end up attracting men who, on the surface, seem kind and loving, but they eventually collapse under the weight of their own people pleasing. And it doesn't just end in collapse, it sours into meanness. But here's the thing about people pleasing, it's not selfless, it's a covert contract. It says, I'll do everything for you. But what's unspoken, even to himself, is, and I'll quietly hope you love me in exactly the way I've never learned how to ask for. He doesn't even realize he has needs because he spent his whole life denying them. He doesn't know how to receive. He's convinced he can wait, suppress, or earn it later. So it's not a conscious contract, it's unconscious self-abandonment with a hidden hope of rescue. And when you don't rescue him, when you don't instinctively give him what he couldn't even name, he feels rejected. And that's when the mask drops. That's when the sweetness curdles into blame, withdrawal, criticism, and emotional punishment. People pleasing is just control in disguise. And when it doesn't work, when the performance doesn't earn the response he wants, he turns mean. Not because you failed him, but because he betrayed himself. And now he needs someone to blame for the pain of that betrayal. He can't own that he gave away his truth, so he punishes you for not protecting it. And this is why women feel so confused, because in the beginning, he says, I just want to make you happy. I'll do anything for you. You're incredible. I want to be the man you deserve. And at first, it feels like a dream. It feels like love. But then you notice that he gives you things you didn't ask for. He sacrifices things that mattered to him without you even knowing. He turns down opportunities, rearranges his schedule, offers help you never requested. And when you don't respond with the exact gratitude or excitement he was hoping for, he crashes. Passive aggressiveness, withdrawal, criticism, moodiness, maybe even a full shutdown. And you're left going, what just happened? Here's what happened. He gave up something he wanted, hoping to earn love. He suppressed his own needs to try and keep you happy. He performed, he folded. But it wasn't love. It was a survival strategy, a shame-fueled, attachment-driven attempt to avoid rejection and gain approval. And now he's blaming you for the cost of his self-abandonment. It can be incredibly hard to tell at first, not because you're naive or blind, but because before he enters into a relationship, your man may genuinely seem secure. He seems stable, confident, and self-sufficient, not because he's done the work, but because he hasn't yet been activated. When it's just him, there's no one to please, no approval to seek. He has no mirror, no emotional risk. So he functions well because he's not in a relationship. But once he finds someone whose love he deeply wants, whose disapproval he desperately wants to avoid, That's when he starts performing. He starts working for the connection. And that's when the people pleasing kicks in. Not because he's consciously deceptive, but because the need to be loved overrides everything else. He is deceiving. He hides his real feelings, his limits, and his truth, but not with malicious intent. He does it because he doesn't believe he's allowed to have needs or that he'll be loved if he shows them. And suddenly, you're left wondering what happened to the man who once seemed so stable. Once your man gets emotionally attached, he starts to fall apart because he doesn't have a strong sense of self. He doesn't know how to tolerate someone being displeased with him. He melts into shame and he needs your approval to survive it. So you become the center of his emotional world. You become the mirror he measures himself by, and the second your response isn't what he hoped for, he spirals. Now let's talk about why your man is drawn to you and why that turns into a problem. It's because you're smart, because you're self-reliant, because you have your shit together. And that kind of woman is irresistible to a people-pleasing man who hasn't developed a solid sense of self. Why? Because he's not looking for a partner. He's subconsciously looking for someone to fix him, anchor him, give him identity, and regulate his emotional life. You become his North Star, his moral compass, his emotional translator, his life manager. He thinks he's in love, but really, he's found a woman who reminds him of the mom he never had, or the mom he still needs. And you're drawn in by the potential. You see the good heart, the sweetness, the loyalty. You believe if he just had a little help, he could grow into the man that he wants to be. And just like that, you're in the role he cast for you. Surrogate mother, emotional container, life support system. But here's the truth. You're not meant to be someone's second chance at parenting. You're not here to raise a man. You're not here to coach him into emotional attunement. You're here to walk alongside a partner. High-functioning women attract people-pleasing men because their strength makes those men feel safe. But then they resent you for the very independence that drew them in. And if you really want to drive the point home, the woman who has her shit together is not the reward for a man who hasn't done his self-development work. She is the mirror, and unless he's ready to face himself in that mirror, the relationship will collapse under the weight of what he expects her to carry. Here's what that actually looks like. So you both go to a Mexican restaurant for your date because you've always loved Mexican food, and he did too. But years later, you find out he's actually always hated it. He just said yes over and over because he didn't want to disappoint you. He wanted to be agreeable. So that night, when you go out on your date, you feel too full and bloated after dinner to be physically affectionate. You're tired and you just want to go to sleep early. In the morning, he's slamming cabinet doors and stomping around, sighing. You ask if he's okay. He says he's fine. You assume it must be work stress or something unrelated. But it's not. He's mad at you. He's punishing you for not reading his mind, for not giving him the intimacy he hoped for not matching the fantasy he silently constructed. And how do you find that out? It sneaks out sideways during a completely unrelated fight. Maybe he snaps at you for feeding the cat, and in the middle of the outburst, he throws in a jab about he's always hated your effing Mexican food. That's when it clicks. He never liked it. He never told you. He just kept saying yes. And to rub salt in the wound, he adds a cutting remark about how you always withhold sex from him. That like it's a pattern, like you purposely made yourself bloated so you wouldn't have to be intimate, as if your body's natural response was a calculated rejection. You never forced him to go to the restaurant. You never asked him to betray himself. He did that. And now it doesn't even feel safe to say no to sex because your body's boundaries get used against you. His overgiving becomes a trap, and your natural response becomes ammunition. And the same thing happens with other things too. Maybe it's a gift, something you never even wanted, never asked for. And when you try to return it or even express hesitation, you can't. Because even though he swears there are no strings attached, there are. He just doesn't realize it. He doesn't consciously know he's giving to get, but that's exactly what he's doing. He's offering love in exchange for approval. And when you don't respond the way he hoped, he feels rejected all over again. And what does he do with that rejection? He sulks, he withdraws, he grows cold, he accuses you of being ungrateful. He starts blaming you for the very things he insisted on doing. And you start walking on eggshells, trying to manage his mood so you don't get hit with the fallout. But when he overgives and you don't mirror the fantasy he created in his head, he punishes you. Quietly, subtly, sometimes not so suddenly, withholding affection, acting like a victim, making you feel like you're impossible to please. Not because you are, but because no one, not even you, can live up to a fantasy built on self-abandonment. So you try to help. You start pointing things out gently. You double check, are you sure you want to do that? Are you doing it for you or for me? You hesitate to accept his offers because you've seen how it ends. You might tell him, I worry about taking this from you because last time you said it was fine and then you resented me for it. You ask him, is this really what you want, or are you going to feel like I owe you later? You try to push him to own his own needs. You try to protect him from himself. You follow the emotional breadcrumb trail all the way back to where he started betraying himself, and you try to reverse engineer the moment it went wrong. You say, I don't want you to cancel your plans for me if you're going to regret it. I didn't ask you to do that. You can say no. You can change your mind. You try to model what honoring yourself looks like. You try to show him it's okay to disappoint you, that you want the real him, not the one who folds. But it doesn't work. Because all of the emotional labor, the second guessing, the checking in, the coaching, the interpreting, is still you doing the work he refuses to do. You're doing all his emotional heavy lifting, trying to rescue him from his own lack of self. And no matter how much you do, it will still happen. He will still betray himself. He still crumbles, and eventually he still turns on you because he has not done the work himself. So now you are doing the exact same thing. You're abandoning yourself to protect him from the consequence of his self-abandonment. You're managing his emotions so you don't have to deal with the fallout. And now you're in the same dynamic, just reversed. He's people-pleasing to manage your emotions. You're managing his collapse so you don't have to deal with his shame spiral. Both of you are abandoning yourselves. And here's the thing. You can't fix this. You can't stop him from shooting himself in the foot. You can't follow the breadcrumbs back to where he betrayed himself and reconnect the dots for him. Even if you do, he won't see it. Even if you point it out, he won't own it. Even if he says, I know that I do that, he will keep doing it. Because until he builds a self, he will always default to fawning, folding, and then blaming. And your job is not to prevent that. Your job is to get out of the way. Let the ship sink. Let him fall apart. Let him learn through consequences, not your intervention. Because he won't take the helm if you never stop steering. Yes, it's sad. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, he probably has a good heart. But until he learns to stay with himself, you're not in a relationship. You're in a caretaking role. You think you're being supportive. You think you're helping him grow. But what you're actually doing is enabling him. You are mothering a man who needs to be fathered. And that's why you lose respect. That's why you stop feeling attraction. Because you're not being met. You're being needed. You're not in a partnership. You're playing the parent. This is why so many high-functioning women end up walking away. Not because they don't want love, but because they're tired of being a second-chance mother to a grown man who never had to build a spine. If this hits, you're not alone. You're not cold. You're not ungrateful. You're not mean. You're not asking for too much. You are asking for a man who can love you without losing himself. And that is the beginning of everything. So, what can you do? You don't prevent collapse, but you do get out of the way of it. When he becomes resentful, withdrawn, or moody, you need to stop managing his emotions. You don't soothe, you don't explain, you don't fix. You draw clear, self-honoring boundaries. They could sound like these. I see that you're having a hard day today. I'm going to give you some time to process. I'm going to go hang out with the girls tonight. You can have your night alone. Let me know when you're in a place to talk with openness and ownership. I won't stay in this conversation if you're being passive aggressive. I'll come back when you're ready to talk directly. You seem upset. I'm here if you want to share what's really going on, but I won't guess or chase it down. It's okay if you're disappointed. You're allowed to feel that, and I'm allowed to say no. I want to feel connected, but I can't do that when you're expecting me to read your mind. This dynamic isn't working for me anymore. I'm no longer available for relationships that require me to manage someone else's emotions. I'm no longer going to explain basic things to you that you could be reflecting on yourself. I expect emotional self-awareness in a partner. If you're upset because you did something you didn't want to do, I need you to own that. I won't take responsibility for choices I didn't make. You stop trying to preempt his self-abandonment. You stop accepting gifts or sacrifices that come with strings. If he insists on giving, you let him, but you name your boundary. You can say, if you choose to do that, I need you to do it without expectation because I didn't ask for it and I won't owe you for it. You don't go to couples counseling with him to help him figure himself out. You encourage him to seek support from another man. Someone who can model grounded masculinity and guide him through building an internal compass. You don't become his compass, you become his mirror. You don't become his motivator. You become the boundary that gives him the opportunity to face himself. And if he can't take that opportunity, if he refuses to grow up, then you can exit the relationship. That's not an ultimatum. That's a reality. You're not threatening him into change. You're simply choosing not to stay where there's no growth. In the space that creates, he might rise or he might retreat. But either way, you're not abandoning yourself in the name of keeping him intact, because that's not your job, that's not your burden, and that's not love. Coming in part 2, I will be speaking about the mother who didn't have a partner, where this pattern actually starts, and what we must stop modeling if we want our children to grow up with real love, not emotional survival strategies. Please come and join my women's Facebook group if you are ready to stop being a man's emotional life raft and start reclaiming your own emotional sovereignty. I will be restarting bi-weekly free group coaching, but this time only women in the Facebook group will have access to the Zoom link. So if you're ready to stop over-functioning and want to build a mutually secure relationship with your man, come join me. The link is in the description. You don't have to carry it all alone anymore.